Hello everybody, here we are today talking about the Montreal Canadiens, a team that's been playing good hockey as of late, and then seeing if maybe playoff hockey is on the horizon for them. So before we get started with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me, or hockey, whatever the case may be. Being said, let's get on into it. So the Habs have been a team that since their 2021 Stanley Cup final run, haven't really been that great. They followed that up with 3 seasons where they finished bottom of the division, and that was all, of course, in a row. They ranked 29th in the league in this time. For points, I believe it was points percentage. Either way, just not a lot of wins in this period. A pretty bad team. So going into this year, the expectations were to improve and then to avoid another bottom place finish at the Atlantic or in the Atlantic Division. So far, they've really been able to exceed those expectations as they currently sit 6th in the division and are a side that's not too far out of a playoff spot. Now, this has been kind of thanks to some good form as of late, winning 6 out of their past 7, but it's not like it's just been the past 7 games. Over the past 13 games, they've gone 9-4-0, and then over their past 22 games, they've gone 13-8-1, which ranks 10th in the league for points percentage. So it has been kind of a sustained period of success. I know that a lot of times we talk about, 15, 20 games, is that everything? Maybe not, but I do think when you are a side that's trying to learn how to win, having a quarter of the year go by where you are playing that quality of hockey or that level of hockey is worth kind of bringing up and saying, yeah, they deserve praise for this. So we did kind of cover, of course, the fact that these 22 games is good. I did want to take a look at these past 7 games and then talk about them a little bit here. They can be broken up into the good part and then the great part. The good part came in the first half, where they collected wins over teams like the Buffalo Sabres and the Detroit Red Wings. But I think that these were important because they came off the heels of some bad losses, primarily that 9-2 loss to Pittsburgh. So what do the Habs do? They go out there and they take out their frustration on Buffalo and win 6-1. And then they followed it up with a couple of nice wins over the Detroit Red Wings, with one of those being a really embarrassing loss for the Red Wings, where, really did push the Wings to go out there and probably fire Derek Lalonde as their head coach. This was big because Montreal, again, after being a bottom feeder in that division, the bottom feeder in the Atlantic, it was kind of nice to say, hey, we are better than these teams. And so far throughout the year, they have been. I know Buffalo has been able to regain some form after a 13-game losing streak, and Detroit at times can play and win. But, again, this is nice to see if you're somebody that's in Quebec saying we want to be better than some of these sides. But then it leads into what I would consider the great part. And this was their wins against teams like the Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Vegas Golden Knights. Who am I talking about here? I'm talking about 3 straight wins against the 2021 Stanley Cup champions, the 2023 Stanley Cup champions, and the 2024 Stanley Cup champions. Mind you, Tampa Bay was a Stanley Cup finalist in 2022. And it's not like these teams were, in a bad streak as of their past 10 games. Looking at Florida, they were the worst of the bunch. They had 6 wins over their past 10. Tampa Bay had 7 over their past 10, and then Vegas had 8 out of their past 10. 3 teams that are all in a playoff spot right now. Florida in a really good position to try to go out there and claim the Atlantic Division title after, again, having so many, accolades over the past couple of years. Vegas, a team that is looking to claim the Pacific Division title. Tampa Bay, a side that looks like they'll probably be secure in a good wildcard spot at least by the end of the year. So that was big. Not only proving you could hang out with some of those sides that have been around you in recent years, but to have 3 consecutive wins against these teams, with one of those being a 4-0 shutout against the Florida Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champions. That is big, even if it is just a small span to play for the Habs. And I'm going to be honest, I think we've already been covering a lot of positives, but we will continue on with that trend. What has been going right here? While you've seen guys like Patrick Laine be a monster on the power play during this course, at times it seems like he is the answer for them on the man advantage. Then you realize Kirby Dach has been able to get things going for them as of late. Not as much as probably you'd like, but still to hopefully get some life out of him would be big. Then you see some other things like the penalty kill, killing off 20 of their past 21 penalties, allowing just 1 goal with guys in the box, I should say, over the past 7 games is big. And the team's just adversity or ability to go out there and deal with adversity is big, as they were down 2-0 against a team like Vegas, a side that, again, is a division leader right now. They ended up going on to beat Vegas 3-2. They were down 2-0 against Columbus. That was the only loss that they've had over their past 7 games. And look what ended up happening there. They lost 5-4, but at least they showed the ability to bounce back and fight their way through this. There are plenty of other examples that we can talk about here, but things are just going kind of well in a lot of different ways for this side. Obviously, they're winning, but again, there are other things to say than, oh yes, well, they got lucky here. Some of these were just good, runs. They ended up having 5 unanswered goals against the Detroit Red Wings, and a game the Wings really needed to win after that, first game where they lost. So the back-to-back, the Wings, fighting for their coach maybe, ended up laying a goose egg in this category. So again, plenty of stuff to be excited about here for Montreal. And they've actually kind of seemingly been able to do the opposite of what Detroit did here, with Lalonde just folding under the pressure, at least his team folding under the pressure when their coach was on the hot seat. Martin St. Louis, again with another positive here, was getting a lot of talk about what his future was with the team. Justifiably so. They've not exactly been great, even though the roster's not always been great when he's been in charge of the team. But with this recent form, I think that the pressure's off him a little bit in that regard. I still think that he's probably dealing with a lot of pressure, even if it's coming from himself, because again, they're not just a bottom feeder now. They're a side that has those aspirations to maybe make the playoffs surprisingly this year. So there is something like that where it's actually probably good pressure to have if you're a head coach. And of course, Marty's probably well aware of what pressure is, considering his NHL career. But he's probably thrilled about how some things are going for him again, too. You have some storylines that he's probably excited about, like Lane Hudson, one of his young defensemen here, that is third on the team for points, leading all blue liners, and is somebody that could go out there and contend for the Calder. I don't think that he will go out there and win it, but to have a young defenseman that could come close to averaging, maybe, I don't think it'll actually end up being a point per game. But let's just say that he goes out there and has a 50 to 60 point year by season's end. Even though things may not always be perfect, it is, again, big. And it's good, too, knowing that if you can develop somebody like Hudson and then see some of these other young guys that you have big expectations for on the blue line, that could be kind of a good indicator for you in the future. Again, you don't want to look at one player and say that this is how every position or player in this position group will do, especially if they're younger, saying, oh, well, we're going to be, just stars along the blue line in the future. But it is something that you could say is good, as well as some other guys like Evans having 8 points over his past 7 games. Jake Anderson, been able to chip in here a little bit, and just kind of contribution from guys that aren't just Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, which, again, Cole Caulfield, credit to him, just scored his 100th career goal here recently. So more and more positives for Montreal fans who really haven't had a whole lot to be positive about for a considerable amount of time. So after all that being said, do I think Montreal goes out there and makes the playoffs? I don't think they will. It's fun because this is really a season where as it goes along, you still think, wow, that final wildcard spot is still really up for grabs. And honestly, when you look at, certain ways in the division and how the 3 seed is kind of looking right now, maybe if they're able to go on a bit of a tear, they could snag that. I don't think they would. Again, I'm not even saying that they go out there and make the wild card because I'd be pretty surprised by that. But a team that can score, we know certainly they can score. They've had plenty of games where they've scored 5 goals or more, at least it seems like it. And they've been able to have really good numbers on the penalty kill. And again, some of these younger guys that are doing well, or older guys that are doing well, or maybe guys that have struggled before that are having good form as of late, and just the ability to buy in and have the the resume over the past month and a half or so, even longer if we're being honest, to say we've been a good team, we know we can be a good team, and this is our proof. Talked about how a team like Chicago last year had like over a month where their points percentage was a little bit above 500. In this case, for Montreal, even better in this category. Young teams figuring out a way to win. For the Habs, this is really awesome. But they could probably look at a team that is not too far away from them, obviously in the same country as them as well too, and the Ottawa Senators, and say this is our way to kind of look at our future, or maybe even our now, because Ottawa wasn't a team that was really expected to go out there and make the playoffs this year, and they're holding down that final wildcard spot right now. So Montreal could say, if not them, why not us? Why not us overall in general? If it just comes down to one Canadian team that wasn't expected to go out there and make it to the postseason this year, I know Calgary at times has kind of been flirting with it, but out east, the Canadians could say, yeah, push over the Sens, we'll go out there and do our thing. Or at the very least, it'd be really cool to see both of them in there in the postseason this year. Don't think it'll happen, but this is still something that's actually kind of fun to talk about here, because if it continues to progress for Montreal for another 10 or 15 games, then you start to say maybe this is the real deal. And who knows, fun runs do come and go during the course of the season, but this is something where we see them get Patrick Laine. He's kind of had a monster start to the year, especially on the power play where all of his goals came on the man advantage. A team that even without him had been able to have some good form. And seeing some players, especially in net, where maybe years are better than what you expected in general, it's all kind of culminating into at least what could be considered a good year, even if they don't make the playoffs. They have not made or cracked 80 points over the course of a season since 2019. I know for a while there they were expected to be a really good regular season side. People, I think, forget how good this Montreal team could be during the regular season when Carey Price was on, but it does, again, feel like a very long time ago. This is a different generation of Habs players for sure, but we've been hearing for so long about how a lot of these young Montreal players could contribute, and there's still probably a long way to go. but if this is an indicator of the future and how things could go for them, maybe it's good. Again, things still feel like they are nowhere near to being a contender, but at the same time too, when you look at a 3-game win streak that we just talked about, Tampa Bay, Florida, and Vegas, you feel pretty good and optimistic about what this could be for the coming years. And yeah, I just think that this is something that did need to be talked about. You know, I know that the Hockey Guy did put out a video recently. I didn't watch it because I wanted to talk about this myself. So I didn't want to kind of focus in on that and say, oh, did I just take any of his ideas or did I really get mine? So I stayed away from it, even though when I was going to put out a Carolina video, he put out a Carolina video. So I said, I just can't not put out a video just because he put it out and he probably makes a million great points that are better than mine. But yes, Montreal, about halfway through the year, is in a spot to compete for the postseason. We'll see what happens in the second half of the year. What are your thoughts on the Habs? Do you think they'll go out there and make the playoffs this year? If not, how far will they be off the pace? And do you think that they'll be able to build off this and then next year make the playoffs? That would really be something. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And good luck, hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.